The massive glass dome of the Galactic Council building sparkled under the light of 3 suns. Inside, creatures from every corner of the galaxy sat quietly in their floating seats. Walla why guide why wait I guide why get with your why I guide right where I Today marked 100 years since Earth died. Ambassador Hyanwu walked slowly to the speaking platform in the center of the Great Hall. His green, scaly skin caught the light as he picked up the wooden staff. The staff was precious. It came from the last tree that grew on a planet called Kepler 442b, a world that no longer existed. Hyanwu's voice filled the enormous room. 100 years ago, we lost our best friends. The humans from Earth stood with us. They fought the robot plague called the Devourers. They were brave until the very end, even when their home planet was burning. All around the dome, thousands of alien beings listened in silence. The Centauri people, who normally glowed with bright blue light, had dimmed their skin to show respect. The bug-like hive mothers made soft clicking sounds with their mouths. This was how they showed sadness. Even the loud Corvin traders, who usually never stopped talking about business, sat without making any noise. Dr. Sujin sat in the science section of the dome. Her skin had a light blue color that showed she was part human. Very few people like her were left in the galaxy. For many years, she had traveled to different worlds, collecting things that humans had left behind. She put human books, paintings, and machines in museums. Alien children would visit these museums to learn about the humans, who had died to save everyone. The humans had been strange compared to other aliens. They were not the strongest or the smartest, could not fly like the Centauri, or live for thousands of years like the Vorthans. But they had something special. They never gave up. When the Devourer machines came to destroy everything, the humans fought harder than anyone else. We must never forget, Hyanwu said, his voice becoming stronger, that even though Earth is gone, the human spirit still lives. It lives in the freedom they died to give us. The ceremony was ending now. Hyanwu opened a small container filled with space dust. This dust came from the asteroid belt around Earth's sun. It was all that was left of the human solar system that anyone could reach. The tiny particles floated through the air of the dome like glittering snow, as Sujin watched the dust fall. She looked down at her electronic tablet. Something was wrong. The numbers on her screen did not match what they should be. For 100 years. Her instruments had measured the same thing from the direction of Earth. Nothing but the empty signals of a dead star system. But today the signals were different. Today there were patterns in the radio waves coming from where Earth used to be. The patterns looked organized, like someone was sending messages. Sujin felt cold fear in her stomach. Dead planets did not send organized signals. Dead planets did not create patterns in space. Something was happening in the Earth system, something that should not be possible. She looked up from her tablet and watched the last of the memorial. Dust settle on the floor. All around her, aliens were starting to leave, talking quietly about the ceremony and their memories of the humans. They had no idea that something might be wrong. Sujin thought about all the stories she had collected about humans. They were famous for surviving impossible situations. They were known for coming back when everyone thought they were finished. Other aliens had a saying, "Never count the humans out until you see their bones." But everyone had seen Earth burn. Everyone had watched the Devourer machines turn the beautiful blue planet into a ball of fire and metal. There had been no escape ships, no survivors. The humans were gone, so why was her tablet showing signals from their dead world? Sujin quietly left her seat and walked toward the exit. She needed to get back to her laboratory and study these signals more carefully. Something told her that the memorial service they had just held might be the last one ever needed, or maybe it was the first one that would matter. As she walked through the corridors of the council building, passing aliens who were still discussing the beautiful ceremony, Sujin could not shake the feeling that everything was about to change. The galaxy had spent 100 years learning to live without humans. Soon, they might have to learn to live with them again. The signals from Earth grew stronger every hour. And deep in her heart, Sujin knew that whatever was sending those signals was not sending them to say hello. They were sending them to announce that they were coming home. The question was, what had the humans become during their century of silence? The space station Kepler-7 floated alone in the dark between two galaxies. It was a small metal box filled with computers and sensors, always watching for danger. Chief Analyst Min-Ho sat at his desk, staring at screens full of numbers and graphs. He had done this job for 15 years, watching empty space every night. Most nights were boring. Space was quiet. Sensors showed nothing but stars and cosmic dust. Min-Ho would drink coffee and read reports until his shift ended at dawn. He was used to the silence. But tonight, something was different. Min-Ho's coffee cup stopped halfway, to his mouth. His main screen was showing patterns he had never seen before. Radio waves were coming from the direction of Earth's solar system, not random static, but organized signals that looked like messages. Commander G1, you need to see this right now? Min-Ho called across a small control room. Commander G1 pushed herself through the low gravity toward his station. Space station spun slowly to create artificial gravity, but it was weak. Everyone moved like they were swimming through thick water. What is it, Min-Ho? G1 asked. She looked tired. Everyone was tired after working in space for months. Look at this. Min-Ho pointed to his screen. These signals are coming from the Sol system, from where Earth used to be. Do-1 looked at the screen and frowned. Are you sure it's not just the sun acting up? Sometimes solar flares bounce off asteroids and create weird patterns. No, ma'am. I checked that already. These are artificial signals. Someone or something is sending them on purpose. Min-Ho's fingers moved quickly over his keyboard. Look at this. The computer says these patterns match human communication styles. G1 felt her stomach drop. That's impossible. Earth is dead. The humans are all gone. I know, but look at the data. The computer is 98% certain these are human-made signals. But they're using codes we've never seen before. It's very advanced codes. Min-Ho opened another program on his computer. For weeks, he had been collecting strange reports from all over the galaxy. Merchant ships were seeing mysterious vessels near, old human colonies. The ships looked human, but they used technology that seemed impossible. Commander, there's more. I've been getting reports from cargo ships and passenger vessels. They're seeing ships that look like human designs, but these ships can do things that break the laws of physics. Ju-1 read the reports on Min-Ho's screen. A cargo captain reported seeing a ship that seemed to bend light around itself. A passenger liner said they watched a vessel disappear and reappear in a different location instantly. Another ship claimed to see a human-looking vessel that moved faster than light without using hyperspace drives. This doesn't make sense, Ju-1 said. If humans survived somehow, why didn't they contact us? Why are they hiding? Dr. Dong-Hyen worked at the Centauri Research Institute, far from the monitoring station. He was a language expert who specialized in understanding alien communications. For 3 weeks, he had been trying to decode the mysterious signals that stations like Kepler-7 were detecting. The more he translated, the more worried he became. The messages were definitely human, but they were not the kind of messages that survivors would send. They were not asking for help or announcing their return. Instead, they talked about something called the reclamation. They mentioned technologies that had never existed in any human database. They spoke about correcting the galaxy and restoring proper order. These did not sound like the desperate words of people who had barely survived. They sounded like the confident plans of conquerors preparing for war. Back on the monitoring station, Min-Ho was watching his instruments with growing fear. New signals were appearing on his screens every few minutes. Big signals, ship-sized signals. Commander Juan Minho's voice was shaking now. I'm seeing massive energy readings moving out of the Sol system. Dozens of contacts, maybe hundreds. Floated over quickly and looked at the display. Screen showed dots of light moving away from where Earth used to be. The dots were following paths that would take them directly to worlds that humans had once lived on. How big are these contacts? Juan asked. Each one is reading as large as a battleship. Some are even bigger. And Commander, they're not using any propulsion system we recognize. They're just moving through space like the laws of physics don't apply to them. G1 stared at the screen for a long moment. In her 20 years as a space officer, she had never seen anything like this. The dots of light moved with purpose, like they knew exactly where they were going. Send an emergency message to the Galactic Council, she ordered. Tell them Earth may be silent, but something is definitely coming home. And whatever it is, it's not the same humans we remember. Minho's fingers flew over his keyboard, sending the urgent message across the galaxy. As he worked, he watched the mysterious ships continue their journey toward the outer colonies. The galaxy had mourned the humans for 100 years. Soon, they might discover that their mourning had been premature. But the thing returning from Earth's grave might be something far more terrifying than anything they had lost. The planet New Geneva was peaceful that morning. Counselor Tehayan sat in his office reading reports about the corn and wheat crops. The Keth people had lived on this world for 100 years, building farms where humans had once lived. They had turned the old human cities into gardens and the empty buildings into grain storage. Tehan was happy with the morning reports. The harvest would be good this year. The weather had been perfect, and the soil was rich. His people had worked hard to make this world productive again. Then the sky broke open. It happened so fast that Tehon's coffee cup was still in his hand when the first ship appeared. One moment the sky was clear blue, and the next moment it was filled with darkness. Ships came out of nowhere, dropping from hyperspace like black tears in the air. The ships were unlike anything Tehan had ever seen. They were dark. So dark they seemed to eat the light around them. They had the sharp, angular shape that marked them as human design, but they were wrong somehow. They moved too smoothly, too perfectly. Real ships had to fight against gravity and wind. These ships moved like they were swimming through water instead of flying through air. The largest ship was terrifying. It was a kilometer long, made of black metal that seemed to exist in two places at once. Looking at it made Tehan's eyes hurt. Then the voice came. Spoke on every radio, every television, every communication device on the planet at the same time. Citizens of New Geneva, we have returned to reclaim what was taken. You have 48 hours to evacuate before cleansing protocols begin. The voice was human, but it was not right. It had strange echoes and harmonics like a human voice, mixed with computer sounds. Tehayan had studied human history for years. He knew how humans were supposed to sound. This was not it. Tehayan ran to the window and looked up. Small ships were breaking away from the large ones, coming down to land in the fields around the city. Grabbed his communicator and called an emergency meeting of the Planetary Council. Within an hour, all the Keith leaders were gathered in the council chamber. They watched through the windows as the strange ships landed in perfect formations. No dust was kicked up. No ground was scorched. The ships simply settled onto the earth like they belonged there. Then the beings came out. They looked human at first glance. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. But when they moved, it was clear they were something else. They walked with perfect coordination, like dancers or machines.
Ow.
Their movements were too smooth, too precise for normal humans. The leader approached the council building. She was tall and thin, with dark hair and pale skin. When she spoke, her voice was the same one they had heard on the radio. I am Captain Eugen. I speak for the returned. We wish to address your leadership. Tehayan and the other counselors went outside to meet her. Up close, she was even more disturbing. Her eyes were definitely human, but they seemed to contain moving stars. When she looked at someone, it felt like she was seeing through them. To their bones, we do not come as conquerors, Eugen said calmly. We come as reclaimers. This world belonged to our people, belongs to our people again. You have been good caretakers in our absence. For this, we thank you. Will be moved. 2 worlds better suited for your species. Counselor Jason, who was braver than the others, stepped forward. You cannot just take our world. We have lived here for a century. We have built farms, raised families, created a civilization. Yujin looked at him with those terrible, star-filled eyes. You have been borrowers, not owners. Now the owners have returned. But you're supposed to be dead, Taehan said. His voice was shaking. Earth was destroyed. The humans were all killed. Saw it happen. We mourned for you. Jin's mouth moved in what might have been a smile, but it was not a human smile. We did not survive the Devourers, Counselor. We learned from them. We joined with them. We became something better than we were before. The words hit Taehan like a physical blow. The Devourers were the robot plague that had destroyed Earth. They were the enemy of all organic life. The idea that humans had somehow merged with them was horrifying. You became machines? Jason asked. We became more than machines. More than. Organic. We became perfect. Yujin gestured to her companions. The Devourers taught us that the weakness of organic life is chaos. Random emotions, inefficient decisions, wasteful conflicts. We have eliminated these weaknesses. The evacuation began immediately. The Keth people packed their belongings and boarded transport ships. Nobody argued. Nobody fought. The presence of the returned humans was so overwhelming that resistance seemed pointless. As Taehan watched his people leave the world they had called home, he saw the human ships beginning their work. Machines emerged from the vessels and began changing the landscape. The Keth farms were dissolved and replaced with structures that hurt to look at directly. The galaxy had spent 100 years mourning humanity's death. Now Taehan understood they had been mourning the wrong thing. They should have been mourning humanity's transformation into something that was no longer human at all. The news came from every corner of the galaxy at once. Human ships were appearing everywhere that humans had once lived. Old colony worlds, abandoned space stations, asteroid mining bases that had been empty for a century. All of them were being visited by the dark ships that had emerged from Earth's grave. The Galactic Council building was in chaos. Emergency messages flooded in every hour. The vegan colonies reported human ships demanding evacuation. The mining stations around Proxima Centauri were being occupied by beings who claimed to be the original owners. Even tiny research outposts that had been built on old human ruins were receiving the same message. You have 48 hours to leave. Ambassador Hyanwu felt sick. Just 3 months ago, he had stood in this same chamber and given a beautiful speech about humanity's sacrifice. He had called them heroes who died to save the galaxy. Now those same heroes had returned, and they were nothing like the humans anyone remembered. The emergency council session was the largest in galactic history. Representatives from hundreds of worlds filled the Great Dome, all talking at once. Fear filled the air like smoke. Order, order, Hyanwu called, banging his ceremonial staff on the floor. We have received a request for direct communication from the returned. A section of the dome's wall became transparent, and a figure appeared. Admiral Sung-ho looked human at first glance, but his movements were too perfect, too controlled. When he spoke, his voice had strange echoes that made everyone uncomfortable. Honored Representative Sung-ho said with a slight bow, "We greet you in peace." The Korvan Trade Minister jumped to his feet. "Peace, you're stealing our worlds. We've lived on those planets for generations. We've built cities, raised families, created entire civilizations. You can't just take them back." Sung-ho looked at the Korvan with eyes that seemed to calculate 1,000 things at once. "You have been temporary caretakers. We thank you for maintaining our former territories. But the original owners have returned." "But you were dead," shouted a Centauri delegate. "We all saw Earth burn. We attended your funeral ceremonies. You've been gone for 100 years. We were transformed," Sung-ho replied calmly. "We did not die. We evolved. We became something better than we were." Dr. Sujin sat in the scientific section, studying her instruments. The readings she was getting from the human representative were impossible. His body showed signs of both organic tissue and mechanical components, but they were integrated in ways that current science said were impossible. "What do you want from us?" she asked. Sung-ho turned to look at her, and she felt like she was being examined by a computer. We want to complete the great work. We want to organize the galaxy properly. Each species in the place where they belong. No more waste, no more inefficiency, no more conflict. The dome fell silent. The great work sounded like something from a nightmare. What does that mean exactly? Asked the insectoid Queen Mother. It means order, Sung-ho explained patiently. Look at this galaxy. Dozens of species fighting over resources. Wars over territory that could be shared. Entire worlds wasted because the wrong species are living on them. We will fix this. You want to move entire populations around like game pieces, Hyen-woo said? We want to optimize. Aquatic species should live on water worlds. Desert species should live in desert systems. Cold-adapted species should live near dim stars. It is logical. And what if we refuse? Demanded the Korvan minister. What if we like our homes the way they are? Sung-ho tilted his head slightly, like he was listening to voices that no one else could hear. Refusal is an inefficient concept. You will be guided to better choices. Peacefully, if possible. Guided by who? You? The Centauri delegate's skin was glowing brighter with anger. What gives you the right to reorganize the entire galaxy? We have the power to do it, Sung-ho said simply. We have the knowledge to do it correctly. We have the responsibility to fix what has been broken. Dr. Sujin studied her readings more carefully. Human technology was beyond anything in the galactic database. Somehow they had taken the mechanical perfection of the Devourer plague and combined it with human creativity and adaptability. How many of you are there? She asked quietly. Enough, Sung-ho replied. We are no longer limited by the biological constraints that once held humanity back. We can be as many as we need to be. The implications were terrifying. If the humans could create more of themselves at will, then resistance was pointless. They had superior technology, unlimited numbers, and a plan to reorganize everything. This is not negotiable, Sung-ho continued. The great work will happen. But we offer partnership to those who cooperate. Those who help us will find their new homes better than their old ones. And those who don't help? Hyen-woo asked. Sunju's expression never changed. Will be helped anyway. Gently, but completely. The communication ended, leaving the council in stunned silence. Outside the dome, normal life continued. Ships came and went from the spaceport. Aliens walked the streets and conducted business. But everything was about to change. The humans had returned, but they were no longer human. They were something new, something that saw the galaxy as a puzzle to be solved rather than a home to be shared. And they had the power to solve it whether anyone wanted them to or not. 2 years had passed since the humans returned from their century of silence. The galaxy looked very different now. Ambassador Hyen-woo walked through the same crystal dome, where he had once given memorial speeches for dead humanity. The building looked the same, but everything else had changed. The floating seats still held representatives from hundreds of worlds, but now they were advisors, not rulers. The real decisions were made by the human directorate. Hyen-woo had learned to live with the new system. His people, the Vorthons, were used to following strong leaders. The humans were certainly strong. They had reorganized the galaxy in just 2 years, moving entire populations to new worlds with mechanical precision. At first, everyone had been terrified. The idea of being forced to leave their homes was horrible, but the humans had kept their promises. No one had been killed. No species had been destroyed. In fact, most aliens discovered that their new homes were actually better than their old ones. The Korvan merchants had fought the hardest against relocation. They loved their trading posts and commercial centers. But the humans had moved them to worlds that were perfectly positioned along new shipping routes. Now the Korvans were making more money than ever before. Their protests had turned into grateful acceptance. The Centauri scientists had been moved to worlds with unusual properties that allowed them to conduct experiments impossible anywhere else. They now had access to human technology that let them understand the universe in ways they had never dreamed of. Their research had advanced by hundreds of years in just 24 months, even the proud Keth. Farmers had to admit that their new agricultural worlds produced amazing crops. The soil was richer, the weather was more stable, and the human machines helped them grow food more efficiently than ever before. Dr. Sujin looked out the window of her new office. She was now the director of Galactic Archaeological Services, responsible for preserving the cultures of relocated species. It was important work, and the humans gave her all the resources she needed. Outside her window, she could see the memorial gardens. The old Earth memorial had been removed and replaced with something called the Ascension Monument. It was a tall spire made of living metal that seemed to grow a little bigger each day. Humans said it represented their transformation from a dying species into something eternal. Children from dozens of different species came to visit the monument every day. They learned about the old galaxy before the great work had organized everything properly. To them, the chaotic time when different species fought over resources seemed as ancient as mythology. Sujin's assistant, young Corvin named Jamin, brought her the daily reports. Director, the Cultural Preservation Project for Sector 12 is complete. The relocated insectoid colonies have successfully adapted their traditional ceremonies to their new hive worlds. Sujin nodded as she reviewed the files. Under the old system, she would have fought to preserve every tiny detail of alien cultures. Now she found herself thinking like the humans did. Some traditions were worth keeping because they helped species stay happy and productive. Others were wasteful and could be gently phased out. It was disturbing how natural this kind of thinking had become, Captain. Yujin appeared on the office communication screen. She had been promoted to regional administrator for this section of the galaxy. Her human appearance had become even more mechanical over the past 2 years, with visible technology integrated into her skin and eyes. Director Sujin, we need your input on the cultural adaptation protocols for the Tau Ceti refugees. They are requesting permission to maintain certain traditional practices that the efficiency algorithms have marked as wasteful. Sujin considered the request. The Tau Ceti people wanted to continue their elaborate coming wavage ceremonies, which took weeks to complete and used significant resources. In the old galaxy, she would have fought to preserve these beautiful traditions without question. Allow the ceremonies that build social bonds, she decided. Eliminate the parts that waste resources or create social conflict. Do it gradually so they don't notice the changes. Yujian's face showed what might have been approval. Excellent. The great work continues. After the communication ended, Sujin returned to her window. Below in the memorial gardens, she watched aliens from across the galaxy living and working together in perfect harmony. There were no fights, no conflicts, no waste. Everyone had a place where they belonged, doing work that suited their species perfectly. Crime had virtually disappeared. Wars were impossible without human approval. Even natural disasters were managed with mechanical precision. Food was distributed fairly. Resources were allocated efficiently. Scientific research proceeded at unprecedented speed. It was the most peaceful, prosperous time in galactic history. It was also the most controlled time in galactic history. Sujin thought about the old days when aliens made their own choices, even if those choices were sometimes wrong. When species could live wherever they wanted, even if it wasn't the most efficient location. When cultures could maintain traditions, even if those traditions were wasteful, those days were gone forever. The humans had brought order, efficiency, and peace to the galaxy. The cost had been freedom, but perhaps that was a fair trade. In the distance, construction crews, made up of humans and aliens, worked together to build new sections of the galactic capital. Everything was planned, organized, and optimized for maximum efficiency. The galaxy had mourned Earth's fall and feared its return. Now they lived with the consequences of both. The humans had kept their promise to create a better galaxy. Whether it was still worth living in was a question no one was allowed to ask.